Welcome to Overeducated and Underemployed. I'm Feddun. Today we've got part one of my interview with Roddy Walston. He was doing house shows and came through my area, so I set one up with him. I had people drive from a couple hours away. After the show was over, he and I partied and watched a stupid movie and just hung out. I want to point out that we had a bit of a rapport before going into this interview, even though I had not known him very well yet. I tried to provide context when they brought up something we had already discussed, but for the most part, we avoided what I wanted to talk about on the podcast prior to the interview. In this first half of the interview, Roddy talks about his early influences, what made him choose to become a musician, what else he may have done, and then tomorrow we'll have part two where he talks more about being a father, what he's been doing since COVID, and what he's doing now to reinvigorate his fan base. Without further ado, I'll give you part one of my interview with Roddy Walston. Full disclosure, I'm a fan, and he played in my house last night. Roddy, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I gotta let you know, I'm also a fan of mine, so.
That's good. That's good, man. Let's just start, what was the first, musician that you loved?
Ooh. First musician I loved. I very much remember two moments that I heard something. I was like, I wasn't even I was a kid, but in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, when he was in the parade and they were singing, he was lip syncing to the Beatles, but it's the Shake It Up Baby or whatever. And it's one of those recordings where John Lennon's sick and his voice just sounds destroyed, and I was like, I want to sound like that. So I didn't even know what I was listening to, but it was just like, ooh. And then in the same way, seeing Jailhouse Rock and Elvis playing it, I was just like, I didn't really care about the visuals as much as just the way his voice sounded. I was like, this is so cool, in a more actually knew what I was listening to kind of way. I found a box of records in my house, and I have no idea whose records they were because it was not my parents, and I don't know. And it was the first 3 U2 records: Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic, and no, that was the box of records. And so that kind of really just flipped my lid, because at that point all I'd ever really listened to was church stuff or music that was in movies or whatever. And then the first CDs I bought was DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, that first record.
Yeah.
Same day bought that, REM Automatic for the People, and those 2 records were a lot of the early 90s stuff for me. And then a year or so after that, my brother brought home Nevermind, and it was just this is so dangerous. We're going to get in trouble. Just the way it sounded. And then in that same world, the Wayne's World soundtrack, strangely, really, that movie just was everything to me and my friends when it came out. And the soundtrack was, we were putting it on to feel something from the movie, but then it was this kind of really turned me on to a lot of different stuff. So I don't know.
That's interesting. The Wayne's World soundtrack is an interesting, there's a cool story behind that too. They were really fighting for Alice Cooper to play School's Out for Summer, in the movie. And they had a new album coming out.
Yeah.
And the label was like,
Frankenstein.
Yeah, you got to play the new song.
Yeah.
And the compromise they reached was okay, we're going to play the new song in the movie, but the closing credits, you get School's Out. And Mike Myers said it turned out fine, because that's all anybody remembers anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's crazy that Twist and Shout was one of the first songs that ever grabbed you, because it was for me too. In fact, it might be the very first song. Different path, although I do love Ferris Bueller. I remember my mom taking me to the mall, to the Sam Goody.
Yeah.
And it was the collection Beatles Rock and Roll Music.
Oh, yeah.
And it was one of the volumes. I can't remember which one, whichever one had Twist and Shout on it.
Yeah.
And that was the first cassette I ever had.
Yeah.
And it's not the first time I've heard somebody say, not just the Beatles, but that song in particular.
And it's a great, if you're into a rock vocal kind of performance, that's got to be an all-time. I think you could play that for anyone at any given moment. It's just, what the hell is going on here?
Do you think there's a common thread between what you liked about that and then what you heard in Nevermind, where it's the kind of dangerous? Because obviously Twist and Shout's not as edgy of a song, but maybe at that age, and especially the way you talked about John's vocals on that track.
I think somewhere in there is Kurt's vocals are very blown out and wild and different than, say, now it's just like everything is so processed, and it's not, most people, you're not hearing like a singular performance or even maybe the best of two takes put together or something like that. And yeah, I'm definitely like drawn to vocals and the wildness in those vocals, or someone being able to like really bring it down and suck you in a different way. But yeah, also when you're young, you're just like, you're still open to everything usually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
Everybody's an artist when they're a toddler, right?
yeah, there's no rules, and you just kind of like what you like. And yeah, so it was as wild to me to get the Fresh Prince record, and you know, was terrified of Nightmare on My Street.
Would you do you feel like that's like pretty representative of the diversity in the music that you still listen to, or because those are
Sure.
kind of other
Yeah,
ends of the spectrum in a lot
yeah,
of
it's
ways.
kind of odd and weird. I mean, like some people, I think that do like rock and roll influence stuff, they kind of get sucked into some romance with the idea of what if I pretend I'm from 71 or I pretend I'm from 55 or whatever, and they're dressing that way and they sing that way and record that. And it's like, I got to find a studio that only has technology that stops, at a certain, whatever, that kind of thing where you're just like cosplaying a decade or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not saying I haven't participated in some of that kind of stuff in the sense of like being really interested in like what would it be like to record a record on tape or whatever, because computers were involved. I had 4-track cassette recorders, but pretty quickly after that, a friend of mine got a very early, like the first affordable version of being able to record on a computer at home. I've been dealing with that kind of technology since early on. But the thing for me, generally speaking, is I like all the stuff that I've heard as far as past things, but like I still am recognizing that I live right now, so I don't necessarily want to make a record where someone's, oh, this guy's a contemporary of the Beatles or something. It's like I did listen to Whitney Houston when my sister was Jim, that influenced me. I thought Michael
Yeah, yeah.
Jackson was a rock and roll singer. I didn't necessarily, I was like, because I was growing up when he was doing like Bad and Thriller, and that stuff was,
Yeah,
I was like, that's crazy that he and Alvin and the Chipmunks sing a lot.
it's Van Halen playing guitar on it.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
yeah.
And again, great. I mean, Michael Jackson, when he's singing aggressively, is like, it's amazing. It's insane. Yeah, so I generally I'm not like trying to jam every genre and every decade and everything that's ever happened in the same song, but I don't go, oh, I can't do that. That's too 97 or 2025 or what.
So you don't make it be the reason you do or don't do something.
Right. I mean, there's certain things that, unless I can find a really artistic, songs about like cell phones or something, like there's certain words or very time specific things that I tend to avoid for a reason, like lyrically,
Yeah, it's interesting though. The converse of that is so many like movie plots are now obsolete because
Yeah,
of the
right,
invention
right.
of cell phones. Or,
Right. Yeah.
it's like this
Yeah.
would have been if they just had a beeper.
Yeah.
Then this would have been
Yeah.
movie would be over.
Yeah.
But okay, so what made you realize that music is what you were going to do with your life, or at least that you were going to try it?
Yeah.
What was the transition from consumer to producer?
Pretty much from early on, I was like, one of my earliest memories was like writing a little, as like a 7-year-old, like being like, blah, 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 like a little rhyme. I know that the rhyme was strife and life. And I like walked up to my mom and like sang it to her, and she was just kind of like, why are you saying strife? Like, did you even know what that means? But so I pretty early on was like writing, like didn't know how songs worked at all. I just would write words down, but in my head it was like, and then when I start writing songs, I'll already have all these words or something, at least know how to put them together. Honestly, the year that Kurt Cobain died, the talent show at our school, they were like, because it was like days later, they're like, no bands, whatever, can play Nirvana songs, but none of the teachers knew Nirvana songs, so everybody played Nirvana songs and just said that they wrote them. And then every band got up and like, smashed their gear and stuff. And I didn't sound great. No, it was in 8th grade. Whatever the case, I looked over at my best friend. I was like, dude, we have to start a band right now. Like the coach was like crying because like hi-hats were going like into the wood of the gym floor and stuff. One kid smashed a brand new guitar, and as soon as he did, he was like, "My dad's gonna kill me." And he like ran away for a week. Like, and I was just like, "This is the best thing I have ever seen." So that was probably the moment that it was
It
like,
really
all right,
spread like wildfire. That,
yeah,
huh?
yeah, it was just like, let's go. Like, this is happening. I mean, also it was wild to observe that moment where even the cool kids were weird for like 1 or 2 years. Like, oh, longer hair, tie dyes. They're telling teachers, suck it. But then all of a sudden, like, the thing flipped, and they were like, actually, I'm a quarterback. Let's get rapey or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Just right back into their old.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it was a cool little
The girls like
peer
Nirvana.
into the window
so-
of like, like what if the world was completely like wild and weird, and then it's like, nah, dog, I'm trying to make money or whatever. My dad's a lawyer. Let's get real. But yeah, it was a weird, cool little moment to live through for sure.
And then when did you realize like you could make this your living or your life, or at least something that you continue to do? And I know that hasn't always been the case, but
Yeah.
when did you realize, "Dude, I'm gonna try and make this my thing and not whatever
Yeah.
else"?
So after that point, it started all like high school, junior high, whatever kind of bands. And like, I think to whatever level I was in a lot of ways the driving force in those bands, but it was also a very young, we're all in it together, thing. But within that, we were like, the writing was really sort of democratic, kind of anybody that brought anything, it got to go in. And then, but inevitably some version of the band would break up or something, quit. And then you were like left with this like, oh, we have this like 18-minute long song, but the third section, blah, 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 wrote and they quit. Do we get rid of their section? Can we play? I don't know. So I had some moment where I was like, I'm going to start writing just a song from the front to the end. Cause I'd basically ever been in bands that like, unless the whole band was in the room, you couldn't play through the whole song. Or you were like, blah, 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 blah. But then hear this, like explaining people like that it would be better if you could hear the whole thing, or we can't play this section because it's on the theremin or I don't know. And so I was like, I'm going to sit down and start writing a song from like front to back that potentially either on a piano or a guitar, I could just play for you. And like, that, so I'd kind of gone way out into the wildness and weirdness before I ever really learned how to write a song. But then, I don't know. So yeah, all of a sudden I had the ability to play a song all the way through, and people were like, I'm into that. And then it's pretty powerful to get positive reinforcement towards the front end of something, because you're like, is this just for me? Is this, I like it, but to have some people that you respect like it enough to tell you, and also go, like right now, like if someone brought me a song and it was just terrible, I'd just be like, oh, cool, blah, 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 blah. But I'm not going to spend time trying to fix something that's unfixable. So if someone sees something in you that's good enough for them to actually give you a critique. And I grew up, my dad was a basketball coach and whatever. So I think a lot of artists, it's like they don't have the ability to hear. You're never going to be a power forward or something. My dad, do you want me to tell you the truth, or you want me to help you get better? And like, okay. And he's like, you're short, you're slow, you're whatever. Like, but here's what you can do. You get better at that. And of course, do the other stuff as much as you can. But
And that's like the downside of everybody getting a trophy,
right. Yeah.
because everybody is told that they're good at something they might not be good at.
Yeah.
And
They
then,
know how to hear that when they do hear it. And then
And-
they just like crumble. It's like, oh, what? And you're like,
yeah. And not only that, they're not diverting their efforts into something they might be able to excel
Yeah.
at. They're like
Yeah.
trying to like flounder in this thing that they've been told that they can do.
yeah.
So do you think you're playing solo shows for the first time in this
Right.
band's history? So
Yeah.
do you feel like you're going through that same experience again?
Yeah. Yeah. In a lot of ways.
On the road?
Yeah. In fact, as we were cleaning up the house the other day, you end up with like Tupperware bins of like memorabilia or whatever, like articles, whatever. And it was kind of like, what is this? I was sorting through it, and there was like a pop-up quote in some art interview I did. And it was like, the name J-Roddy in the business, when I named that band, or I started playing as that, there weren't a lot of blah, blah, blah and the blah, blah, blah at that time. It was like one word, just like Bush.
Yeah. But it was like the Strokes.
Yeah, well,
Hot,
that
all
was a
those
few
dub
years,
bands.
that was a few years later. But yeah,
Yeah,
singular word, a singular kind of and the premise was really in reference to that thing where I kept being in bands that broke up, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna be able to play, and whoever's in the band or not, I can keep playing these songs, because I had just gone through. You're in high school, someone's just, I don't like this anymore, or I'm going to college or whatever. And so when I read that, I was like, dang, dude, I'm just like learning the same lessons over an hour. Not, I do love being in a band and I do love working with people and whatever, but like at this point in my life, I'm at least ready to have a chunk of time where I'm starting over for a while.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm trying to make people feel appreciated while not making them allowing them to have the ability to be like, oh, we can't do that show or that tour because my family's vacation or something like that, which
Right.
they should be able to. Like, I missed so much of the important family stuff in my 20s through early 40s, just being like band music, whatever has to come first. And so like, also when you're in a band like that, them being like, can you play this show? And you're like, well, my niece is graduating. Like, yeah, it's going to cost everybody else in the band like $4,000 each or something. You're like, sorry, I can't go. Anyways, so I think coming back and being able to play the songs by myself, I was just in a band for so long that like when it came time to finally do a solo show again for the first time in 15 or 20 years, I was like, oh man, I don't really know how to play my songs front to back without this. I'd normally stand up during the bridge and run around or whatever, or like, how do I make this engaging to play by myself? And so like learning that again. And then it's also given me the ability to try out new stuff in front of people versus like with the band, a lot of times you're like, everyone has varying degrees of comfort of what if we fall flat in front of people, which I also have learned that I, while scared about it, really thrive on.
Yeah.
Like this tour I went on last summer, I basically it was both like as I was traveling and on stage, it's like, if I think about it, I have to do it. So I didn't become careful about it. I was just like living my life. But like at sound check, if I did a weird version of a song, it was like, okay, tonight on stage, I'm just going to figure out how to play it all the way through like that. Like that version of Sweatshop that I did last night.
Yeah.
That was just an idea I had one night. And then it was like, all right, here we go.
And I think that keeps people that know your songs interested too.
Yeah.
That's part of why some people want to go see a band and they just want to hear the way it sounds on the record. But I think real music fans typically want to hear the most organic version of that song they can.
Yeah.
And I think like you've gotten to the root of making these songs like, new and organic again when you do that.
Yeah. I think we, like J Roddy in the Business, we were touring for at least 15 years, at least 200 days a year. And it's exhausting and sometimes way more than that. And so that idea of, hey guys, how do we keep this fresh? It was more like, how do we stay alive?
Yeah.
Or like we were never on a bus. We were very much into it, even when I got a point when maybe people were like going, oh, these guys are blowing up or successful. We were driving ourselves, like no tour manager, we would have merch guys, but the merch guys were like buds. And we were like,
and they were also probably doing 2 or 3 other things for you too.
Yeah.
Loading or whatever.
Be like, you can come along. We don't know when or how much we can pay you. If there's money left over, you'll get some. But it's going to be a party and, free booze and we'll find a place to stay. Like you're in your 20s, you can stay here and like work to buy beer, or you can go with us in the van and sling some t-shirts at night. And it's okay. We'll share a pizza or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So with that, it was just hard maybe to stay constantly motivated to reinvent things. But at a certain point, when you become almost like ubiquitous, as far as I think where we and a lot of the people that kind of got shoved into the just stay on tour and that's how you can make money kind of version of being a musician, you do hit a point where then suddenly everyone's, I'll just catch them next time because they're going to be here another 2 or 3 times this year, or definitely once a year, if not their show, plus they're out opening for someone, plus a festival, plus whatever. And then if you're doing generally the same set, do I need to see that for the 10th? What? And so, that's definitely situation like house shows or changing up the whole process is where I'm at. Not necessarily as a sales pitch, but just like it makes me more excited. And I think it makes sense. If you want to see what I'm doing, better see it right now, because in 6 months I'll change it all. Or next time I come through, which might only be that only time that I come through for the
it's the only time you've been here. So
I've never been here before. Yeah.
Is there anything else you could have done? Like looking back, like some people, I feel like they have a choice. Like,
okay. I thought you meant like to be more successful.
No, I don't mean it like, no, I just mean, could you have done anything else with your life and been happy or successful. And I don't know that anybody's happy, especially if they're an artist, but
Yeah.
but is there something that, like, if you weren't a musician, what would you do?
Yeah, that's the point. You constantly are, where I'm constantly like going, is this it? Probably some weird world where I was like a lawyer or something. I was really fascinated with law and have a whole different concept on it now than I did at a point where I maybe would have considered it. But I'm handy. I like building stuff. I can build things. I can do stuff. I got like the hyper focus superpower. So it's like for 6 months, I'm a pretty good electrician. Like I like lose all that knowledge or whatever, as I'm just like processing things to learn how to do it. But it's like the slowest version of the Matrix or something. It's like,
I know electrician.
yeah, yeah, and then it goes away. Yeah. I think most people that really, every once in a while you meet like someone and you're just like an animal. But like a lot of times, the people that really are good at anything, I don't think there's that many people that are actually good at anything.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
those people could be good at anything. And so I'm not saying I could be a brain surgeon or something like that, but I think had I become a lawyer and had I worked as much and as hard as I did and have and still do at music, I'd be a partner. You know what I mean?
But isn't
Like,
the real question, could you have worked as hard at that as you do something that is,
I'm generally unemployable, so I guess the answer probably is no. But because I was always the guy that at my regular job, I was never like trying to become the boss. I don't know. I never really jumped in and said, let me just blow these guys away. I as a teenager, was like, first of all, you're an idiot. Like, the regional manager of Slotsky's Deli is not the sharp knife in the drawer. And then also your parents own the business, so we all know why. And then, but I was definitely just the guy. I'm just going to keep my head down. I'm not trying, I don't want to make this the most profitable McDonald's in the country. I don't care. This place sucks. Most of the people in here suck. I'd almost never told people that I go by Rod or Roddy when I had a job. Almost all my bosses called me Jonathan because I did not care to even pretend like this was going to be a place I cared about, or that it was like, this is to get some money to go over here and actually do the thing that I do. I was never I love you, corporate America. I probably the answer is no. I would have sucked and generally have sucked at being an employee. Money's not real. This place isn't real. I don't care about it,
Yeah, I think what you said is interesting. Like, the people that are good at something could probably be good at a lot of things, but I think the motivation to do that is really the difference between, like, you have a different perspective on the law now. Like, you might, if you had become a lawyer and you still gained that new perspective, and I don't necessarily know what that is, but you might end up regretting being a lawyer.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like if
I
you're an
regret
artist,
being a musician. No,
that actually that leads me to something I wanted to talk about. I mean, there was a time where you wanted to call it quits,
right? There's been a few times, probably.
Yeah, but it was a pretty recent time.
Yeah,
and about a year ago.
Yeah,
and I guess two things. Like, one is like the realization that you probably can't do anything else. Is that part of what brought you back to it?
Yeah, probably a little bit of that.
And also, what kind of caused that to begin with? Is it the same kind of things that you've always dealt with, or was there something new?
I think it was the culmination of whatever led to J. Writing the Business ending straight into COVID, because like the last business show was their Thanksgiving 2019.
Yeah.
So straight into COVID, which was wild. And then like inside of that,
especially with the landscape of the way musicians make their money these days. Like,
and even that sort of thing that the music industry really pushed on probably my crew of people for the first time. Of, don't worry if everyone's stealing your music, they'll become your fans and you can sell them tickets and whatever. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, what happens when we can't sell them tickets?
Yeah. Mike Cooley once said, we're traveling t-shirt salesmen.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that if you can't travel.
That sentiment actually was one of the final straws for me, of all the way burnt to the end of 2024, 2023, going into 2024, just this, everyone, all these guys, like, here's how to make your career, blah, blah, blah. You just need to accept that if you're a musician, you're a traveling t-shirt salesman or whatever, you're in the t-shirt business. And I was like, dude, that is not what I want. That's not how I want to go about this but it kind of was one of those things where I think you have to just kind of keep at it. And the sort of, I heard at some point, it was like, if you want to make it in the music industry, don't quit before you make it in the music industry, or don't have a plan B, because if you have a plan B, you're absolutely going to take it, which I never really had a viable plan B. And there were a lot of times where it was literally like, if I had a college degree and I could pivot in 1 year, have a specialized something to move to, or it would be like, probably would have done it. Don't know that I would have stuck with it or been happy to do it, but I probably would have taken it a few times. And it was just like, I got no option. This is what I got.
It doesn't seem like you would ever stop writing songs, though.
Yeah, no. There's moments where I had fantasies about, screw it, I'm going to sell everything. I don't touch instruments anymore. And people being like, why would you do this? Well, they sing a song or something, or do it for yourself, and just being like, no, done with you,
So we've talked off of the podcast a little bit about this creative drive or the curiosity that I think plagues a lot of artists, from visual artists to musicians to comedians to, how would you get that expression out if you weren't doing music?
I don't know. I used to write something like short stories, and then never really thought I would put them out. And so take a short story and go like, how do I condense this down? That's the folly of the nature of probably like my makeup, is like other times when I've been like, maybe I don't want to do music anymore. Maybe I'll become a screenwriter, or start writing novels or something. But instead I have some practical, normal, let me trade my time for a dollar bill kind of skill set or something like that. So I think I've come back down also to, when I was saying like, I don't want to be a t-shirt salesman. Part of that was selling t-shirts that I didn't like and having a lot of skin. Even more than that, reading that the majority of people that buy records don't have a record player. And like, also the majority of people that buy band shirts don't necessarily wear the band shirts, and appreciate the sentiment that it's like they're doing it to support art and artists that they like. But I was like, really turned off by the idea. I was like, so I'm just making junk that like eventually someone goes, we clean the house 5 times. Is it time to get rid of this thing? My stuff's just more stuff for the storage unit or something until it finally goes in the landfill. And
I see what you mean. Yeah.
And then like on top of that though, as an artist, to make enough to take on tour, you're putting a lot of skin in the game up front. And at any given point, people would just be like, yeah, I don't want to buy that or whatever. And you're like stuck with this stuff. Yeah. And so I was going through all these different things in these slow, just train wrecks of just life in general, my individual and the general experience. Like I said, COVID, whatever. And basically I get hit, go down one knee, and just that drive, you can't stop, drag myself back up, keep going. And finally, end of 2023, going into 2024, it was just like, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stay down and sort of sit in my annihilation and observe it as best I can and be fine with it if that's where I land.
Your priorities are a lot different than they were a decade ago too, right? Your father, you've got other people that rely on you to do things that, whereas like for a long time, you were just doing it for you and that's all you had to take care of. It's somebody who was also a parent, like it changes things a lot. Well, there you go. There was my interview with J. Roddy Walston, the first half of it anyway. You'll be back tomorrow with the second half. I really enjoyed talking to him. Make sure you go catch him on tour right now. Check out his website, jroddywalston.com. Check out his social medias. And make sure you check my website out as well, feddun.net. I'll be starting to stream on Twitch again here soon. Changing platforms, so I'll be starting fresh there. And come back tomorrow. We'll have part 2. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks for checking out Overeducated and Underemployed. Once again, I am Feddun. And remember, if you want me to answer a question on the podcast, go ahead and send it over to feddunxr@gmail.com. That's FEDDUNXR@gmail.com.